It's my pleasure to introduce astonishing members of the cast. First up, please welcome Miss Angela Bassett. Lupita Nyong'o. And the king himself, Chadwick Boseman. Thank you all so much for coming out. Nearly a year since audience started appreciating and then embracing and then devouring and then having this film really become part of our culture. And we talked about at the beginning, or I mentioned that 2018 has felt like a year which we needed this to be true, but it's a year when the movies have given us what we've needed at certain moments, and this film felt like it was on the vanguard of that. Whether we knew it or not, we needed this film, and audience certainly have embraced it in a manner that reflects that this was something that was missing, and you all helped fill that void. I'm wondering, how conscious were you in putting this together, working with Ryan, working with the entire team, that there was the potential, at least, that this would become a cultural touchstone?
Wow. You want to start out with the easy questions, huh? No. I think there's no way you can know how an audience is going to respond to anything, and there was obviously something about this that was new, so there was definitely some trepidation there on the side of the studio, probably, and on our side, but not in I don't say that in a negative way. I think there was an excitement every day, and I would even say even the first conversation that I had with Kevin Feige, Nate, and especially first conversation with Ryan, it was all about the fact that you haven't quite seen this before. And anytime you can say that about any piece of work you're gonna do, as an actor, as a director, writer, you get excited about it. You're like, oh man, they haven't seen this. Oh my gosh. So you hope the script is gonna be great. You know, you hope the script lives up to what you think it could be. And when you see it is, you go, oh, well, yeah, it's close, you know. And so we had like a 2-week. No, it was longer than that. It was like a whole. It was 6-week period. Oh my God.
That's good if you thought it was shorter than that. It was good.
It was a 6-week period where we came in, we trained, but we also talked through the script. We also tried to iron out things that you know didn't work for each character. And I think throughout that process, there was a certain exhilaration that I have never felt on anything before, and that also carried into, you know, that training, that excitement during training, that excitement during the script or rehearsal process carried into literally every day of work, I would say. So we knew we were doing something that was special and that was exciting for us. Yeah. I'm not saying that you guys would get it or that you would show up or anything like that. But and you also don't know what is the final outcome of everything you've done. Like, what is the cut gonna be? So no matter how excited you feel about it, you still have that certain sort of please don't let me down feeling throughout the process. And I think that's what this was. You know, all the way to the end, to the premiere, to you guys showing up on that. Thank God you did on that weekend. So you know what the possibility is, but you don't really know what the final outcome would be.
That's true. You don't know how it's going to end up.
No.
It's like a real faith journey. Like you say, you hope the script will be good, because I also had a conversation with Ryan without a script. You know,
right.
Just on the phone one day, and I'd like you to play this character, and well, what happens to it? Well, we're thinking about this and we're writing this, and it was like, okay, but you take that leap because I'd seen his previous 2 films.
Right.
You know, so to work with someone who plays that well, you know, to know that you're a part and you're a part of it. You know, you believe that this is great company. If there's any possibility of success, it certainly seems, you know, we have a chance. But if it's not successful, it's going to be the greatest experience. It's going to be a great experience, life experience and lessons. And I think every day in rehearsal, it did feel different. You know, we're just, you know, working on the accent work, working with, you know, you guys, of course, with all the fights and stuff, and just every actor, artist, or you talk to Ryan and say, well, I'm thinking about this, or what about this passage? And he's like, let me think about that. And he'd go think about it and come back with, you know, he would really think about. So it was very, very collaborative. It was great. And I think the excitement in terms of the audience, you knew it was special in the making, just in the room. But with the audience, I think once we got closer and closer and we started seeing, you know, fans, yeah, on YouTube, yep, crying and screaming, and you're like, dances. Oh my God, and connected, and it meant so much. That was different. That gives me chills now.
There were so many pitfalls, though, to fall in. There were so many things to fall into and to kill this, that, you know, I think every person was like, nah, I have to make sure that this is right. I have to make sure that that is right. We talked about the Warrior Falls. Like, there was so much input from each person about what would make those things right, because you want to make sure that you're being as authentic as you could possibly be with this fantasy. Mm-hmm. And you know, you want to make sure that things feel real to people, so that they can take this and it's like you want people to enjoy every.
Wakanda is at a pivotal moment in its existence, where it has to decide whether it's going to preserve itself or participate in the larger world. And T'Challa goes in that journey, you know, and the film starts, and in the very beginning you hear the argument from Nakia, like, we should open our borders, that, you know, Wakanda is strong enough to protect itself and also help as well. And it takes his personal journey through the film to get to a place for him to understand that, to truly, deeply be convicted to take on that role through meeting a cousin of his in Killmonger, you know. So it's a family. It's a story about family, but it's a story about nations, and it's a very personal, intimate story, and it stems from questions that Ryan himself was asking about his own identity as an African, you know, and an African American in that relationship as well. So all these issues make it such that there is no other way than for it to be about flawed people, because, I mean, at the end of the day, that's the only reality, you know, and that in flawed people exist extraordinary abilities. And I think that's what the mythology of superhero is about, reminding ourselves of that.
You know, I don't think we've ever. Go ahead, sorry. I don't think anybody's ever asked a question that would give us the opportunity to address that, actually, and just a little bit of insight on Nakia. That I don't think you necessarily get this when you watch the movie, because it was part of our backstory, and it's probably in there at some point, and we cut it out. But her mission, as a spy, as a war dog, coincides with what my father's later vision is. His later vision is to open the borders. You know, that's why you have him going to the Sokovia Accords. That's his later vision. But what I grew up knowing him as a closed person, as a traditionalist. So you're seeing him, the entire movie is actually you watching him wrestle with his flaws, or me wrestling with his flaws, with his changes, and she's privy to information about what his vision was because she went on this mission. At the beginning, that he sent her on at the beginning of the movie. I'm rescuing her out of a mission he sent her on, and so when she's giving me this advice, she knows more about what he wants at this point in a certain way than I do, and that's not explicit when you watch the movie, but that's our backstory.
So I had the privilege of having a conversation with Joe Robert Cole in New York, the co-writer of the film, and he described the urgency, the necessity of placing women at the center of this narrative in the context of his experience and Ryan's experience of having black women at the center of their lives and at the center of their families and their community units. And I'm just wondering, for you, Ms. Bassett, maybe you could speak to that a little bit, how there is this real network of women that keep everything together. And you're at the top of that pyramid of support for our hero, our main hero.
That was part of this journey of this storytelling that was very satisfying, because so often sometimes you're off to the side, you're adjunct, and it's all about the he. But in black culture, in America, black mothers, aunties, grandmothers really have been holding the family together. We see they've done great things this year in terms of the election, in terms of when they unite and focus. And sometimes the underestimating works to your advantage because you don't see it coming. But it was very satisfying, and I know, Chadwick, you've spoke to it, that T'Challa takes counsel, wise counsel, from the women in this life. And in African mythology, I've heard it said that there cannot be a king without a queen, So it was very satisfying to be a part of it and to have 4 strong females around him, and how that captured audiences is something very different. Like you said, what we did not know we needed to see, or to experience on screen, and there it was, because there's an idea, a thought, and a lot of it was dispelled, I think, with this film. And one of it is the idea of the black woman and who she is.
It also seems to dispel a little bit what the idea of a love interest in a film like this could be. And Lupita, it's almost odd to even try and describe your character in those terms, but in essence, it's also part of who she is. But talk a little bit about how you form that partnership, true romantic, but also literal partnership.
Well, Ryan was very keen to have all his women have agency, to have them occupy their own space, as much as they were also, of course, to support the narrative of our main protagonist in T'Challa. And so we had a lot of discussions about that, and Ryan really did invite us to the table in an extraordinary manner. And we felt very free to share openly, good and bad ideas alike. And so with Nakia, he definitely wanted her to have her own mission, her own trajectory in life. And when we start the story, it's complicated between T'Challa and Nakia. But the one thing that you always are aware of is the love and the respect that they have for each other. But I think what makes it, what perhaps sets Nakia aside from the traditional, love interest role is that she has a pivotal role to play in the main argument of the film. and the fact that we hear it from her mouth first, what then Killmonger says, it's the same thing, just a different means to an end, and then what T'Challa ends up doing, these are the things that make her more than just, more than just, I love you, baby, go do your thing, and yeah, and we discussed that a lot, right? I mean,
yeah, it was, what I loved about it was, you're talking about a man that has everything. He has basically everything, but he has her love, but he doesn't have it the way he wants to have it, and that's always more interesting, to have to work for it, and I want to know who was doing. Okay, who was doing that laugh? That's funny. To have to work for it, and to to respect her opinion, to need her help. We have to go to Korea. Come with me. Not just because it would be cool to have you tag along, but because actually I need somebody to watch my back, and you're the best person to do it.
And also who speaks Korean. Hello.
Say it again. Right. Hey, you speak Korean. You know everything about it. Yeah. No, that's what I'm saying. Like she's equipped. So you wanna. A lot of times you see love in movies, and there is love for no good reason, but it's also that you fall in love with different attributes that a person has, and
and the value they add to your life.
Yeah, all of it. So I appreciated that journey, and that was also a conflict. It wasn't something that was just understood, and then you deal with the larger conflict in a movie. It actually is driving him just as much as the larger conflict, because it's the thing that's gonna make him happy in life. So it was lovely to play with that.
Yeah, and one of the things that Ryan really wanted, and I've experienced this when I watched the film, in a way that I don't think I appreciated when we were working on it, was that he wanted to create, because T'Challa has a lot to deal with, right? A lot is coming at him. And the argument is so taut and tense about what to do, what the next steps for this nation is. Excuse me, I'm fighting illness. So he really wanted, with Nakia, for there to be a shift in rhythm, and for Nakia, and for the scenes with Nakia to always have a serenity. Like Nakia's his safe space, and which was challenging because at the same time there's some issues to deal with, and Nakia needed to be a part of that. But we were able to strike an interesting balance, and I only noticed that he actually succeeded in doing that when I saw the film, because with the Nakia scenes, there is a definite shift in even the rhythm of his body, and there's just there's a sort of sway and a peace with which they communicate, and even just to see a relationship between a man and a woman that love themselves for sure, but each other, love each other, and are at odds with each other about what the way forward is, but for the respect never to be lost, is so important to see a working relationship.
It's funny because when you talk about relationships like that, where the stakes are not just, do we make each other happy, or what's going to happen in our house even. It's larger than that. It's like what's going to happen with our entire country. Those political, social differences can drive a wedge between those two people where they can't be in the same house together. Like you see it with Nelson Mandela and Winnie Mandela. They had different opinions about where the country should go also. So that is a wedge. So it's those conflicts become, well, can we be together then? It's not just like in your house, like is one of them might be Republican, the other might be Democrat. You can still stay in the same house. But in our situation, okay, well maybe not.
Agree to disagree.
Maybe not. Not in this day and age, huh? It's over, huh? But historically, you've been able to stay in the same house. But with us, those differences are such a huge thing, and are, it could be a conflict where we can't live together. We can't. If she can't fulfill her dream, then I got to figure out some way to respect that and let her do it. I have to. I have no choice. And in Wakanda, I don't think male-female relationships are the same. I think that's one of the things that we try to establish. Like, you're watching a movie through the lens that you know it, but I think when we talked about things, there's an equality there that exists in Wakanda. Shuri could be the leader of Wakanda. She could challenge for the throne. You get that sense very clearly, I think, throughout the movie. And so I think that's also true in our relationship.
So I do want to open it up to the audience in just a moment, so get your questions ready. But I feel like we got something going here. Ms. Bassett, I just want to throw it to you now. But actually, you've all played historic, based in fact characters, or inspired by historic events, but bringing a realness and authenticity to the fantasy realm, which is an essential part of cinema history. Fantasy has always been something necessary in our cinema, but to bring these characters to life, what was the challenge, or was it purely more fun to invent out of whole cloth in a way this new iconic?
Sometimes it's more challenging. It feels more challenging because you have that, those steps, those footprints, that blueprint already there, for you to, hang on to and then to, fly off from. But this is, purely from the imagining, of our two writers and, and all of us together in that room from scratch, and you're anxious to get it right, to get it the most right that you possibly can. But I think that's one of the things that when I was watching the movie that was really satisfying, that, each person, each actor, each visage on that screen, at some point, it grabbed them, their heart, just the emotion was there. You're on the verge of, everyone was on the verge of, everyone believed so deeply. We all existed in the same world, and the stakes were as high for each one of us. I really, saw that the first time I saw that movie.
I was just going to say that, yeah, sometimes it can be more challenging, for sure, to play a fictitious character. In this particular film, the challenge was also not only that we were playing fictitious characters, but we were creating a fictitious world, a nation on the African continent that doesn't exist. But the opportunity was to really deliberately, specifically borrow from the real continent and pay homage to realities that we know, but never really get the limelight or the recognition that they deserve. So that was an incredible thing to be able to do, and our design departments did a phenomenal job. So much of the work to get us there, the fact that our costumes, this film is an homage to African culture, I feel. And it borrows from everywhere. We're talking traditional and contemporary alike. The step town where T'Challa and Nakia take a walk is inspired by the fashion in Johannesburg, and Ryan went there and he experienced that, and you can see it contemporary African style and fashion, and then the rest of the country, when you see Warrior Falls, you see all these costumes, and there's the tribe that wears red and the tribe that wears green and the tribe that wears purple, and all of them are inspired by specific things, from the continent, the Dogon, the Surma, the Maasai, and it's very specifically put in there. You have
the merchant tribe, and
right,
because they would interface with other places and other people, they may have on their traditional garb and Gucci sunglasses.
Exactly.
Because they're trading and bartering.
And
or you see the one with the red with the clay, and they,
Right, and these are things that you can see definitely on the continent. But what the production designers did was to accelerate it into a future that we do not know. And I think the question on the table that we were all trying to answer in our performances in the artistic endeavors was, what would Africa have been if it had never been colonized, when an African nation had the opportunity to develop on its own terms, and that's Wakanda.
It's also grounded here in Oakland, right? I mean, I think it's important to acknowledge that there is that connection to a contemporary reality here. Do you want some tea? Well, no, because seriously, we can get you some.
Make some tea.
Great if backstage, if you hear this, a little tea would be amazing. Cough drops. The audience is on your side. You got the audience all the way. Let's do just one or two questions. We do not want to harm the health of our actors. We got cough drops thrown at us.
I got drugs being thrown on me. Thank you.
Oh my God. So if you see a hand, ushers, maybe up in the back, there seems to be enthusiasm. If you could run up there and grab one of those hands.
Yes. My name is Moses. I'm from Tanzania. East Africa. I had a question for you, Lupita. So as a well-known African actor, what's your advice to us young international student actors that are out here in LA trying to pursue this acting field and tell amazing stories such as Black Panther and what else?
You're asking for my advice?
Yes.
I would say there's no formula to doing the thing that we do. So I mean, my advice is to find what you're passionate about and pursue it. I mean, and there's just no formula. So I think it's helpful to have, I guess, to look at people's careers and have a vision for yourself, but there's just no roadmap. So you have to do it the way you have to do it, I hope that's helpful.
It should be helpful because that's an honest answer, and no BS. It's the road you pave yourself, right? Yeah. Let's do one on this side.
Hi, love all you guys. You guys are amazing. I just wanted to ask, what are you guys' opinions about Killmonger's approach to trying to liberate Black people around the world? Because there's Nakia's approach where go in the world, help refugees and all that, and then Killmonger's very very like smash, kill, all that type of approach. A lot of people discuss it as, well, it's validated. He went through the really harsh experience of being black in America, so that's why he's that way. But the other side is like, well, no, he went about it the wrong way. Like, he's harming other black people. So what were you guys like personal opinions, like being in the story? Like, what side did you tend to go on? Like the Black Panther, like Oakland, tear it up type of side, or the more, peaceful, like let's go in and help type of side?
I would have to say, even at the end, you just said, was it a Black Panther approach, tear it up approach? Meaning you mean the Black Panther Party, right? That's not as, even when you make that statement, I have to say that their approach wasn't just that. Their approach was to take care of home, to protect their home. It was Black Panther Party self-defense. So we taking care of, we're gonna police our neighborhood from cops who are terrorizing our neighborhood. I have to say that Killmonger's approach, I agree with, from the standpoint of, if you get to have a gun, I get to have a gun, right? If we should be equal in terms of what our freedoms are, our freedom to preserve our life, and our freedom to take care of our families. So his approach of, that hasn't been the case since Western civilization colonized Africa, right? It hasn't been the case since it colonized much of the world. It retains all the resources and power and weapons and tells you can't have those things. So Killmonger's approach is actually fundamentally correct. It's not always about being right, though. It's about the way that you carry those things out. So the only difference between what T'Challa ends up doing versus what Killmonger ends up doing is he says, you know what? We're letting everybody know that we actually are a superpower. And there's nothing you can do about it. Because we've never been colonized. We don't care what you think. We don't care if you think we should have weapons or not, because we got better weapons than you. We're going to share with the rest of the world. So now you have to deal with that balance and imbalance. That's literally what the story is saying. So I completely, when I read what Killmonger was saying as an African American, I was like, yeah. Because the same way that when I watched Malcolm X, I was like, you know what? That stuff that he's saying, that's right. When I first saw that movie, when I first read the autobiography, but it's the way that you carry it out that I think is the distinction between T'Challa and Killmonger. It's one that still has power, but also is responsible in terms of how it preserves life. So that's my take on it, and that was my take when I first read it. I actually had to come back to T'Challa, though, in reading it, because, when you want to play out the fullness of what he's saying, because as an intellectual exercise, as a Caligula sort of type exercise, just to see what would happen. Is he right?
Let's take one from the middle section. We actually had one from the middle section. Let's take one from this section. And there's a young, no more throwing, please.
Hi. So as actors, especially in a world of like Batmans and Supermans and stuff, were you guys ready for the impact and representation you were going to put out with Black Panther? Like for children specifically, like?
Oh, man. Not at all. I was ready. I was ready. I mean, this is the kind of film that I didn't really even get to dream should happen, you know. But that the world, this fantastical world, was missing dark skin, and so it was time. And so, you know, we had the right studio behind us, and the script had, like Chadwick said in the beginning, every step of the way it was so promising. It was so promising, and we're crossing our fingers. And yes, please go out there and dress like a little, you know, Black Panther and a little Nakia and all that. That's, I mean, at the end of the day, hopefully this story is really subconsciously shaping what is possible for children. And I know that's something that I really wish I had when I was as young as you know, these, you know, as young as these kids are experiencing this now. But it's never too late. And for me, I remember being on set during one of the tribal council scenes. I wasn't called to set that day, but I went to peek. And and I saw all these people so regal sitting in this room and doing their thing, and I got chills because it was so elegant and elevated and African. And, you know, the little child in me leaped for joy. It was like, oh my goodness, yes, this is, something was healed in me seeing that scene and then seeing this movie, you know? It's kind of like, yeah, depositing into that child that we all have always, you know? And so, yes, I was ready.
Yeah, we were ready to see it happen. And like you say, on that day, and some of it you can't even see the fullness of it on the screen. The big panthers, the floor that's made of glass, and you can see down into Wakanda.
You can't even see how dope it is. No.
Yeah, it was
amazing.
just amazing. But to sit there and to look around the actors around you across the diaspora, you know. From Africa, from England, from New York, from those who've been in it, from Germany, been in it for a while, those who are new to it, those been getting there. It was just an inspiration. And like you said, to sit there in this elevated regality, it was amazing. It was dreamlike. And yeah.
So, Ms. Bassett, I actually wanted to end with a question to you because I was commenting on a radio program, kind of a year-end wrap, and we decided that this is the year of the women over 40, and and it's been way too long in coming. But look, I mean, obviously between what you've done in this film, Viola, Melissa McCarthy, but even within the genre, I mean, there's Glenn Close, there's Michelle Pfeiffer, there's Annette Bening, we just learned yesterday, coming up in a new movie, and yourself. The one thing about teaching boys and girls is you have actually helped teach fanboys and girls how to listen to their mother, right? Which I think is kind of remarkable. I mean, getting audiences to actually pay attention to grown women, especially in this genre, is a remarkable thing. And I wonder if you could just comment on that. I'm sorry, but it's remarkable.
I've never thought of that. Really? I've taught fanboys? How so?
To listen to their mother.
Elucidate. I don't know, maybe being a mother helps that, you know, because I have a boy at home.
And he listens.
He listens. And I constantly say, bow down, pay me my respect, you know, from the soundtrack.
Well, I think we would all bow down to all of you. Thank you so much. Congratulations.
Thank you.